All right, I want to continue to follow some breaking news of a doctor shot and killed in St. Joseph County.
News conference getting away right now. Let's listen into this.
A couple of tragedies today. Approximately 12:58 this afternoon, St. Joseph County Police received a call of a shooting. I gave you that information earlier. When they arrived, they found a person down. That person has been identified as Dr. Todd Graham. Dr. Graham was deceased at the scene. Information was obtained that there was a red vehicle with a male white driver that was involved in this situation. The nurses and the staff at the facilities surrounding that area and some of the local hospitals went into immediate lockdown, as they were trained to do. In my opinion, it was absolutely the correct thing to do. In fact, when I got there were people still locked inside the building in rooms. So in a situation like this, very imperative that they did what they did. They have to be commended for that. A short time later, we received a call that the potential suspect had committed suicide. Officers from several departments responded. We were able to find a person matching that description along with a weapon. That scene is being processed as we speak. I can't say enough for the abilities of the people that were there, the officers, as well as the staff at those facilities. That they did a heck of a job. That's about all we really have for right now. We're still interviewing people. Ken COTTER and his staff are down here preparing search warrants for certain items that we need. I'm not going to go into any great detail about any kind of wounds or anything like that. We will have a post tomorrow morning, an autopsy at 8 a.m., and we should have more information later on today. Ken?
Inside, outside?
Dr. Graham was killed outside of the facility.
How do you spell his name?
Graham.
Was he ambushed?
I would characterize it as a direct attack on him. I think it was an isolated attack. That's the way we're looking at it. That's what we feel. From the evidence that we have out there, from all the statements that we've been able to obtain, that's the way it looks to us.
Do you have any indication that it was specifically Dr. Graham, or perhaps it was a doctor in general?
Yeah, I'm good.
We're confident that it was a target at Dr. Graham.
I'm okay saying that there was a confrontation before.
Why? Do you think that?
Well, there was a confrontation earlier in the day, and there's been other information that's been obtained that perhaps this has been a building situation that within the suspect.
Could you tell us how their relationship, how they knew each other?
No, I'm not going to go into that yet.
And do you know, in terms of where the suspect was found in his vehicle, is this a residence that he was at? Was it on the side of the
He went to a friend's house. He called the friend to let the friend know that he was leaving certain items, and he indicated to him, at least through the information that we had, that we were fairly certain that if he hadn't committed suicide, he was going to. And we did find his body about 30 yards from the front door of his friend's home.
outside of the vehicle?
Outside in the yard.
What was his name? Did you name?
We're not going to release his name yet.
We still haven't had an opportunity to talk to his family yet.
You know, it's bad enough that the wife of Dr. Graham had this information related to her through social media. We never want to do that. We want that direct from us. We owe that to the victims. We owe that to the suspect's family. And we're going to treat the suspect's family the same way. So we want to make sure they've been contacted properly.
This might seem very silly, but is this now being called a murder-suicide? Is it fair to say that at this point?
We're going to have to wait till the autopsy, see what the doctor tells us, and then we'll characterize it after that.
Commander CORBETT or COTTER, I mean, in terms of the folks who reached that on the social media, is there anything you could do to sanction them, or that just, nothing can be done about that?
On the social media and people relaying it? It's sad that people want to take partial information and post it as if it is true. I would wish that they would put themselves in the family member's shoes to see how they would like it to hear people making guesses and trying to make it as true. And even if it is true, to have it conveyed in that manner, my heart goes out to Mrs. Graham.
But there's nothing that can be done, I guess, legally against the folks who did that.
That's correct. We do have the First Amendment. People have a right to be able to say what they want to. I just wish that there would be some decorum that is done.
Was this confrontational or building situation, was it personal or professional?
The investigation's still going. That we're not quite ready to release that information yet. We'll probably be talking to you once again relatively soon, but we're still interviewing people. So we want to ensure before we say something that we have all of the facts so that it is clear and it's not guesses and those half-truths at this point.
So,
Car involved on Valley Trail?
The suspect's body?
Yeah.
Valley Trail in Dragoon, yes.
So the suspect contacted a friend and when he committed suicide was in front of their friend's house, correct?
Close to the friend's house.
Was it that friend that called police, or it was someone else?
I believe he called the police, and then it was relayed to us, and several officers left the initial scene to go out and look for him, and he was found dead.
Who initially called police when that 1258 call came in?
You know, they received several calls. As a matter of fact, they're compiling a list. Ken and I talked about it. There were several calls coming in, so I can't tell you who the first one was or who the 10th one. I won't know that until I get that list.
There were workers who were there who saw at least parts of this. There were patients who were coming and going who saw part of it. These guys have interviewed probably about 20 different people.
The suspect was dead before the police arrived?
Yes.
Any idea how many other people were on the grounds?
Hundreds. These were two large facilities, you know, South Bend Orthopedic, and not South Bend.
St. Joseph Rehabilitation.
And also the rehabilitation. So those two buildings there had all their patients as they normally do. And that's why, you know, Commander Corbett was commending their response to that shooting. I also second that, to ensure that no one else was hurt. At the time, they didn't know whether that suspect and the shooter were still on the grounds, were trying to get in to get more people. You don't know, and so taking those safety precautions was the absolute right thing to do. In this case, he fled, but they didn't know that. We had our two hospitals who I know that Commander Corbett has been in contact with. They actually locked up so that no one knew whether this was a concerted effort against all doctors. The facts seem to indicate that this was an individual who went after another individual. It wasn't somebody who was going after all doctors. But you don't know that, and so their actions were commendable.
And were there a lot of witnesses outside at the time?
Yes.
I understand the shooting.
Was he leaving work, or was he just taking a break? And is there any indication that the suspect knew when he would come out and leave the building at that time?
He had patients at both facilities, and so he was in transit from one facility to the other.
How old was Dr. Graham?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
And you mentioned that you found a weapon with the suspect who committed suicide. Is there any indication that was the same weapon?
We won't know until we do ballistics on that. You know, we can guess, but we're not in the business of guessing.
And it was the suspect currently, was he there for an appointment or anything like that, or did he randomly come here to commit this act?
We still have to do search warrants. Like I said earlier, Ken and his staff are preparing search warrants for certain things like phones and medical records. We won't know any of that until we get that in hand, so I won't guess on that either. Okay? Anything else?
Anything else?
Oh, this may be a silly question, but when you have an act like this happen where someone is killed and then you find the next person and they've killed themselves, I mean, how hard as investigators is it to put those pieces together without having that individual there to, I guess, ask those questions to?
A lot of times the individual who, if they survive, don't talk to us and they still solve the case just the way they do.
Is there any danger for anyone else around the area, or is everything kind of contained to just these?
We have no indications. Is there any other outside sources that are involved in this? As Ken said, you know, we've spoken to the hospitals and all the other agencies that contacted us, and we don't feel that there's anything else out there. Now, as always, you still have to be cautious because this is a situation that's through, but there's, Lord knows everything's going to happen again, so you have to be on top of it. And, you know, we keep singing the praises of those nurses, but they did one heck of a job. The easy thing would have been run out the door and forget everybody, but they had patients in wheelchairs. There were people that could not move, and they stayed with them, not knowing what was waiting outside for them. They didn't know if the guy was in the building. Literally, when I went in, there were people still in lockdown. You know, we're knocking on doors saying, police, 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 and, you know, they're really not believing it because who knows? They did an excellent job. That's why these threat assessments and preparation is so important.
And that's why, so what happens? Do they just, everything locks automatically? Is it like a siren that goes off?
No, each place has their own particular code. Yours may be at your facility code red. That means you lock everything down. It just depends on what they have, but they knew what to do because they were trained and they reacted to their training, and that's what saves lives. All right? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We spoke with Mrs. This isn't on record.
Well, there you're hearing St. Joseph County Metro Homicide Commander Tim Corbett, along with St. Joseph County Prosecutor Ken Cotter, telling us everything that they've been able to discover about what happened from 1 o'clock on. I mean, we're finding out that Dr. Todd Graham was the person who died and was shot today. Just an unfortunate situation.
Right. We're going to digest all this new information. WSBT 22 News at 6 is about ready to start.